It is now time for the Robesonian Sports Report with Chris Stiles on 97.1 FM, 1340 AM, WAGR in Lumberton, covering sports for Robeson County. Now here's your host, Chris Stiles.
And a good Thursday morning to you here for the Robesonian Sports Report. I'm Chris Stiles, sports editor at the Robesonian. And first time we've had got the chance to have a show here in the new year, so got a lot to go over with local high school sports and UNCP as well. Everything kind of within the Robesonian's coverage purview. So jumping right in, high school boys basketball, of course, in full swing. And last night, or Tuesday night, I should say, Lumberton defeating Purnell Sweat 49-20. That was kind of the headliner on Tuesday, or one of two in-county matchups, actually. And this game was as one-sided as it sounds. Lumberton dominated in every part of the game from start to finish. Pirates are 8-7 overall, 3-2 in the United 8 Conference. And Lumberton's been a different team since Demetrius Jones joined them 3 games into the season. They're 8-4 after an 0-3 start without him. He's averaging over 19 points a game, 6 rebounds, 2.5 assists, and 3 steals. So certainly a very strong player for them. Still some growing pains for a young Pirates team. They've the last 7 games have actually alternated results, win-loss, win-loss. But the first 3 games of the season I mentioned, without Demetrius Jones, it looked like this season was going to be really rough for them. So they've overcome that, and with his help, and with Jaden Shepard leading the way as a senior on this team, and then some supporting pieces. Amari Jones, Nick Lawson, and Nate Lawson are freshman twins, and then Israel Perkins as well, all becoming more comfortable as they get more experience. The Pirates are really starting to come around and playing some good basketball. They'll be home Friday against Cape Fear to start kind of the second run through conference play, and that will also include a couple teams that still have to play twice with some makeups. Purnell Sweat is 3-10 overall, 1-5 in the league. No way to sugarcoat this. The Rams are really struggling of late. They've lost 8 out of 9, and the win in that span was against the Douglas Byrd program, whose losing streak has reached the 70s. Sweat's been struggling all season to find a second scoring option behind Colin Sampson, who's averaging 17 a game. They've got some sophomores and some juniors that Jeremy Sampson, the coach, is hoping that will develop into a stronger team for the future and that can build around Colin Sampson. But right now, kind of going through some growing pains with this group. As we record this, actually on Wednesday, they've got a game Wednesday night against Pine Forest, so we don't know yet the result of that. And then Thursday, they will resume conference play at Grays Creek. Elsewhere in Robeson County, Fairmont earned a 41-39 win over Red Springs on Tuesday night. This was a back-and-forth defensive game before Tyreek Thompson hit a go-ahead basket with 16 seconds left to give the Golden Tornadoes the win. Fairmont is 3-0 in conference play, 12-3 overall, a very strong start for the Golden Tornadoes, and they stay perfect in the league ahead of Friday's big game at West Bladen. That's between the 2 remaining undefeateds in the conference. Fairmont lost a couple of non-conference games to start the new year with Pine Forest and with Southern Lee, but they've recovered with 3 straight conference wins. They remain the best team in Robeson County. They proved that with the Robeson County Shootout, which they won, and then they proved it with recent wins over St. Paul's and Red Springs, even as, of course, the Red Springs game was a little closer than maybe some on the Fairmont side would have anticipated. But getting back the reigning Robeson County underclassman of the year, Xavier Johnson, who's now a junior, adds a very dynamic scoring element in the backcourt. And they're already very efficient offensively behind Landon Cummings, who's averaging over 14 points a game, nearly 6 rebounds, and Nyshawn Davis in the front court is averaging 11-4. So they've scored 77 points or more 4 times this season. And then Tuesday night's game against Red Springs, that low-scoring game, showed that they can win with their defense as well. So a well-rounded team that's playing well. And as I mentioned, Friday they're at West Bladen. Red Springs is 7-10 overall, 2-1 in conference play. This was their first conference loss coming against Fairmont. They struggled through the non-conference portion of the season, but are off to a better start in league play with wins over St. Paul's and Clinton. Kind of a baffling start to the season, really, through the non-conference play because they're a senior-heavy team, especially a lot of experience in the backcourt. And those guys in the backcourt have been individually playing well. Kaydon Porter with 19 points, over 6 rebounds, nearly 4 assists per game. Makai Arthur averaging 14.5 points, 4 rebounds, 4 steals. And finally now they're kind of starting to hit their stride a little bit. The St. Paul's win showed that, and even playing a close game like a home against Fairmont showed that as well. And, that proves that they're still capable of playing toe-to-toe with really strong competition. The Red Devils will be home on Friday against Midway. Elsewhere in the results Tuesday night, West Bladen defeated St. Paul's 51-29. St. Paul's team is searching for answers right now. They've lost 7 straight games since a 7-3 start. They're 7-10 overall and 0-3 in the Southeastern Athletic Conference. They're struggling to score the ball. At times they've also struggled to defend, such as the Fairmont game where they gave up 80 points. But the biggest thing has just been struggling to get the ball in the basket. Tyson Thompson's been strong inside for them, 12.5 points a game, nearly 8 rebounds and 3 blocks. But he's been looking for, and the team's been looking for, a consistent supplement to him from the backcourt. Tyson, of course, in the front court, looking for some backcourt production to help him out. The schedule does ease up a little bit on the back half of their first run through conference play, and they have Clinton at home on Friday, and Midway still to go in the first cycle through as well. So that could help them potentially get a couple wins here to finish out that first cycle in the Southeastern. Here on the Robesonian Sports Report on WAGR, I'm your host, Chris Stiles, sports editor at the Robesonian. And we touched on all 5 high school men's teams in the area, but collegiately, UNCP's men's basketball also in full swing, of course. They lost a close game to Lee's McRae, back and forth game, 77-73 on Saturday, which ended an 11-game win streak for the Braves. As we're recording this, they've got a game on Wednesday night at Francis Marion, which is the top 2 teams in the Conference Carolinas Eastern Division. As I say, as we record this, we don't know the outcome of that game. But another season for the Braves in Conference Carolinas, their 3rd year since joining the league, and another year that they're certainly one of the top teams in the league, if not the top team. Something that's been a perennial thing since Drew Richards came back to be the head coach, and since they joined Conference Carolinas. A plus 9.8 rebounding margin, which is an exceptional rate, and that's another Drew Richards hallmark. And before that, even a Ben Miller team hallmark with this Braves program has been how well they always rebound the ball. They've got 4 double-figure scorers in Bradley Haskell, Nigel Verdier, and I wrote down the wrong name here, actually. Haskell, Verdier in the backcourt, and Elijah Cobb is in the front court. They've got 9 players that have scored double figures at least once this season. So terrific balance, and you kind of never know whose night it's going to be for the Braves. And I mentioned the Wednesday game at Francis Marion. They're at North Greenville on Saturday. And, of course, you can read about all of this in the Robesonian and at robesonian.com. Coverage from Tuesday night's Lumberton and Purnell Sweat game. Coverage as well from UNCP and Francis Marion from down in Florence on Wednesday night. And coming up, coverage, of course, of high school basketball as well on Friday night. And we'll talk more later in the show, too, about some of the other coverage that's going on. But just getting started here on the Robesonian Sports Report on WAGR. Coming up after the break, we'll have Fairmont boys basketball coach Montrell McNair as our guest. You're listening to the Robesonian Sports Report on WAGR. Back on the Robesonian Sports Report here on WAGR, and we're joined on the phone by Montrell McNair, the boys basketball head coach at Fairmont High School. How's it going, Coach?
Good. How you doing?
Good. And you guys are coming off a win Tuesday night over Red Springs, a nail biter of a game, 41-39. You guys pulled it out in a close defensive battle. So how'd you do it?
Well, I think the defense stepped up finally in the end. We actually played the way we were supposed to play and caused some turnovers late in the game. That caused us to prevail late.
Yeah, and you're a team that's shown some explosiveness offensively. I think the stat is you've scored 77 or more 4 times this season. But in this game, had to win it defensively, a real low-scoring game. So what does that show about your team, the ability to do both of those things?
I think it shows a lot of growth. We worked really hard over the summer and throughout the season to get better in every aspect. I do know we have to get better offensively and executing a lot better. But both sides of the ball, I'm pleased for right now.
And you guys got Xavier Johnson back last week. He was the Robeson County Underclassman of the Year last year. What does he bring to the table that allows you guys to be even that much better after the strong start you've had?
I'm telling you, he brings some more offense, much-needed offense, some tenacity. He's a winner, and he's going to bring some more energy.
Yep. And Landon Cummings has been shown some excellence for you guys, night in and night out. Was Robeson County Shootout MVP. And I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I know he's averaging right around, I think, 15, 16 a game. So what's he been able to do for you guys that's kind of led the way as you guys are off to this great start?
I've watched him grow up. He's not afraid to take the big shot. He's not afraid to go attack the basket. He's not afraid to shoot the three. And he's doing a much better job of pulling rebounds and defending this year. And I think he's more well-rounded.
Here on the Robesonian Sports Report on WAGR, I'm your host, Chris Stiles, and we're joined by Montrell McNair, the head boys basketball coach at Fairmont. And you guys are coming off back in December, having won the Robeson County Shootout Championship. First time in a few years you've been able to do that. So how much momentum from winning that title have you guys been able to carry into the rest of the season here after the new year?
Ooh, it's been tough after the new year. I think we struggled a little bit with Pine Forest. They came in and beat us. And then we played in the MLK Classic at Red Springs and lost to Southern Lee. But I still think it was a confidence booster. It's hard. That's why some coaches play in 2 tournaments, so their kids can stay kind of in the groove and keep their mind focused on the small things with basketball, keeping them in basketball shape and competing. Having that layoff after the shootout, we were prepared, but that layoff, even with practice, kind of took us out of sync a little bit.
And Fairmont's girls also winning the shootout. It was their first since 2006, and it was just the 5th time that a school has swept both shootout titles. So how big was that for the Fairmont community, not just that you guys won, but that both teams got the job done and won the shootout title?
That was huge for the community. They were very proud. It hadn't been done since I've been coaching as a head coach or an assistant coach. That we both won the championship, the Robeson County Shootout. I think it was a huge confidence builder, momentum builder, community healing win for both teams.
And you guys have West Bladen on Friday in Bladenboro, and obviously they're all big games in the conference, but this one is especially. It's the last 2 unbeaten teams in conference play. So how big is this one, and how do you guys approach this, and then what will be the key to beating them on Friday night?
We're just going to approach it as a playoff game. And that's what the atmosphere is going to be like. Every possession is going to be, the intensity level is going to be really high. The crowd is going to be really active and loud, from both sides. We're going to have to approach this game just like it's one of the last games of the season. Just come out and play like we've been playing together, sharing the basketball, and playing solid defense.
And we've certainly seen experienced teams take a big step forward from year to year before, but this team has made a huge jump in the results, winning 8 games a year ago to where you guys are at this year. So what's kind of been the key behind that success here as we're getting to be about getting close to 2/3 of the way through the season, and you guys have played so well?
I think the key behind it is you have to start with the point guard, Gabriel Washington. I mean, he's came from leaps and bounds from where he started at as a sophomore. I also have Tyreek Thompson. He's been playing for us since he was a sophomore. So these guys are seniors now, and they bring a lot of veteran leadership that we've been missing in the past. And some of those younger guys like Landon and Josiah that's been playing as sophomores. Xavier Johnson also been playing since he was a sophomore. He's a junior this year. So just a little bit more experience and good veteran leadership helps with ball control.
And you got a good coaching staff, some relatively younger guys, but then also Michael Baker, who the gym is named for. Obviously, plenty of success and experience as a head coach for him through the years. So how valuable of an asset is Coach Baker on the bench for you guys?
That's a valuable asset for us. Coach Baker always has some wisdom to share with us in all types of situations because he's dealt with it just about every situation you can think about in a game. He's been through it, coached it, so he really gives us good feedback when we ask him stuff, and in certain situations, it's awesome to have him on the sideline with us.
And looking ahead, I know you as a coach probably don't want to look ahead too much, but what is kind of, for lack of a better way to put it, maybe the ceiling for this team here over the next couple of months?
Said the ceiling?
Yeah.
Right now, I can't tell where the ceiling is.
Yeah.
I just know I wanted to be on the up and up. Once we really mesh the way we're supposed to, these guys are going to really be playing on a different level. We've got to get to a point where we're not playing down to our competition level and then stay on our level, stay up. And I think we'll be pretty tough for the rest of the season.
Montrell McNair, thanks for joining us here on the Robesonian Sports Report.
All right, thank you.
And we'll be right back after this.
All right.
And back on the Robesonian Sports Report here on WAGR. And for the last segment of the show, we're going to look at high school girls basketball in the area and UNCP's women's team as well. And going back to some of the results from Tuesday night, Lumberton earned a 47-34 win over Purnell Sweat. This was a game that was tied at halftime before Lumberton's defense really shined in the second half and helped them break the game open. Even a lot of their offense was largely the result of forced turnovers that they were able to force there. And Lumberton's 4-9 overall. They're 2-3 in the league in the United 8. This is a young team, but one that's improving throughout the season, which is kind of what they were hoping to do this season. A big win over Lakeview in the shootout, a ranked team in 1A in South Carolina. And a couple of competitive losses that have been maybe closer than people might have expected. And then now this win over Purnell Sweat, which snapped a 9-game losing streak head-to-head against the Rams in their big rivalry series. So Andrea Brown having a breakout season in the front court for the Pirates. But Tuesday night it was their guards really that stepped up. Gabby Locklear led them in scoring. Charlie Whitley has kind of found her shooting stroke after struggling some earlier in the season to find the basket. And then Briandria Glover had, I think, 8 points on Tuesday night. 6 of those were in a short little stretch where she would get a steal and go lay it up. So a lot of points coming off of her defense. Lumberton will be home on Friday night against United 8 favorite and leader Kate Fear. And all-world guard Jada Angel coming to town with the Colts. Purnell Sweat is 4-10 overall. They're 2-4 in the conference. They've lost 6 of their last 7. They're also a young team, and they've also had some injuries that have kept some of their experienced players off the floor. Nia Locklear averaging nearly 13 points, nearly 10 rebounds a game. as a notable holdover from those strong teams the Rams have had the last few years. So she's kind of leading the way for this team. There's some potential on this roster, certainly, but they're struggling to find the results just yet. Tuesday they played well for a half. As I mentioned, it was tied at halftime, but then played pretty poorly in the second half as Lumberton pulled away. So the Rams had a non-conference game against Pine Forest on Wednesday night and then resumed conference play at Grays Creek on Thursday night. Elsewhere, Fairmont beat Red Springs 56-15. And as expected, Fairmont, the best girls team in Robeson County, at least so far this season, and leader in the Southeastern Conference as well, and rolled to the win here. The Golden Tornadoes are 15-2 for the season, 3-0 in the league. They won the Robeson County Shootout, their first title in that event since 2006, earlier this season. But they're having a really strong season beyond just those 4 days in December. They've got a 5-game winning streak right now. Tania Sims averaging 15.5 points, 12 rebounds, 2 blocks a game. And then the Smith twins, Nia Smith and Maya Smith, who, it's interesting, their stat lines a lot of nights mirror each other pretty well. Their games are naturally very similar. But here lately, they've, one or the other's had a big night. So, but their averages, Nia averaging over 10 points, 3 rebounds, 5.5 assists, and 3.7 steals a game. Maya at nearly 10 points, 5 rebounds, nearly 4 assists, and over 5 steals per game. The twins and Tania Sims provide 71% of the scoring so far this season for Fairmont, but they've got other pieces that provide other important production for them beyond just the scoring. Fairmont leading the conference, and they've got another game coming up with St. Paul's down the road that will be large conference implications. But this is a well-built Fairmont team that is set to make a potential playoff run come late February. And Friday they're at West Bladen. Red Springs on the losing end of this blowout in the Seine County game. For as strong as Fairmont's been, Red Springs, it's been just as much of a struggle. They're 2-13 on the season, 0-3 in the conference. This is a program that looked to kind of be turning a corner last year in Tanisha MacArthur's first year coaching them. They were right around 500. They made the state playoffs, but now they're kind of back to where they were largely from 2019 to 22, at least from the results standpoint. And they've lost 7 straight games as we sit here this week. An unsurprising bright spot, certainly, for them has been Monica Washington, their center, who's averaging 11.5 points and 14.9 rebounds. That one pops off the page per game. Of course, she had a couple 30-rebound games last year, but she's been everything as advertised for them. The problem's been getting some scoring and some other production to help her and make this team play as well as it did, comparatively speaking, last year. The Red Devils will be home on Friday against Midway. Here on the Robesonian Sports Report on WAGR, I'm your host, Chris Stiles, sports editor at the Robesonian, and going through Tuesday night's high school girls basketball results locally. And St. Paul's beat West Bladen 68-29. And the Bulldogs are 9-4 overall. They're 2-1 in the conference. Took care of business against the bottom half team in this league. And I think there was kind of a little bit of a perception here coming into the season that maybe St. Paul's wouldn't quite be as good because Jakaya Thompson had graduated and some of the others that were around before her that are currently playing college basketball. But they've still got Jashante Harris, of course, and then they've had some other pieces to come in and really supplement Jashante. They've got a great backcourt with Jashante and Zariana Shipman and Ava Monroe. Jashante averaging over 19 a game, as well as 4 assists, 3.5 steals. Zariana Shipman averaging over 15 a game, over 2 assists and 3 steals. And then the freshman Ava Monroe, I think, is going to develop into a really strong player, and already is a strong player, averaging nearly 8 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 steals per game. 2 of their losses are very close games against Fairmont. The first one in the shootout ended up being a 10-point game because Fairmont hit some free throws at the end, but it was closer than that. And then the one last week first meeting in conference play between the two came down to a layup at the buzzer that could have rolled in. Instead, it rolled out, and St. Paul's ultimately lost that game by 1. So it's not out of the question that they could win the home game in this series coming up February 6th, which will have large conference tournament or conference championship implications there. As for the immediate future, they're home against Clinton on Friday. And then for the UNCP women's basketball program, they defeated Lee's McRae 62-45 on Saturday. They've won 6 of their last 8. The big story, more broadly for this season, is that John Haskins is retiring from this program, his 20th season leading the Lady Braves after he had previously spent 10 seasons as the men's head coach, 35 total years coaching UNCP, and 43 years overall in the coaching profession. So Braves certainly looking to take Coach Haskins out go out in a blaze of glory, if you will. And they did win the conference tournament last year, so they're going to look to repeat coming up in early March. But this is a defensive strength team. They've held 3 straight opponents to 45 points or less. And they've got their full backcourt back. Courtney Smith and Alcina Purnell missed some games to start the season. They've both returned. They've both had some big contributions in some Braves victories. Meanwhile, Kalea Hall is having potentially a Conference Player of the Year level season, averaging over 16 points, right at 5 rebounds, and over 3 assists per game. And she had a 39-point game a couple weeks ago. And then Zaria Clark's been nearly as solid, nearly 14 points and 7 rebounds a game for her. The question for this team has always been, the last few years anyway, if they could score enough. And at full strength, I think they're better equipped to be more consistent on the offensive end and do so. And therefore, they're positioned well to, at the very least, have a very good chance to give themselves the shot to repeat as conference champs. They're right in the race to try to win a regular season title, and Conference Carolina is actually in divisions this year, so it would be a division title for them if they can do that. But certainly, they're going to be looking to repeat as conference tournament champs coming up with that event at Wofford the weekend ending March 10th. And you can read about all that in the Robesonian online and in print, and high school basketball coverage from Tuesday, and some other stories of note. Bladen Strickland named the head coach for baseball at St. Paul's for the upcoming season. UNCP's Radarius Freeman, a very strong defensive lineman, but he was also named Academic All-American as a result of his strong studies in the classroom. UNCP basketball Wednesday night at Francis Marion. And then going back a couple days, Lumberton Wrestling winning the United 8 championship, both the boys and the girls. And they've got the state playoffs coming up here on the first and second round will be on Saturday. So you can find all that on Robesonian.com and in the print edition of the Robesonian as well. For Paul Matthews behind the scenes, I'm Chris Stiles here for the Robesonian and for WAGR. Thanks to Montrell McNair for joining us a little bit earlier, and thanks to you for joining us as well here on the Robesonian Sports Report.